This is Peter,
And this is Tom.
and you're listening to History Teachers Talking Podcasts. All right, this is Peter Zablocki and Thomas Reska, and welcome back to our podcast. Tommy, what do we got?
You know, you always ask me that, but it's always, I know you mentioned that
Yeah, I
since
know.
before. It's in the description. But anyway,
Yes.
what we're going to be looking at is, I guess, something that, we took a while too, and we are trying to figure out what to call this podcast. So we're looking at how things got their names, why things are named certain ways. You ever wonder, like, why Amazon's called Amazon, Google's called Google, or even why fingers are called fingers, I guess. That's what we're going to look at.
Yep. So how objects, how companies, brands. Yeah, and also we'll kind of jump all over the place. We haven't done this an episode like this in a while. Back in the day, we did a few of these, fake history or whatever. So we're kind of going to be all over the place in this one, but I think that's what makes it fun. Just kind of discovering or rediscovering some of these origins of some of these names, and also some of the people that a lot of things we use today are named after. So we'll get some background information as to, why things are called what they are.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
I was kind of looking, doing research on this, like how objects are named, period. So usually objects are organized into like a hierarchy. Like each object is named relative to a parent object. Most new words are simply assembled out of old ones. So Same thing we'll notice here with companies and stuff. A lot of these names come from like a source of a word that already exists. Based on even like teaching sociology, I know you teach that too. We identify, we symbolize, we refer, essentially something comes closer to us and we understand it better if we give it a name.
Yeah, it becomes part of our
vernacular,
exactly.
Culture, really. And that's why some cultures have more than one word for what's important to that culture. Like I'm pretty sure that if you look at it, like we have many different words and synonyms for money because it's very important for American culture. But I know that some cultures that specifically live in very cold climates have a lot of different vocabulary words for snow. It's this idea of like we name things to almost like bring them closer, make us understand the world that we live in.
Help validate them in our minds, like you said, in our culture, just make it part of our lifestyle. Makes it easier.
Yep. All right. So let's, I guess we could talk about this stuff.
All right, good. Where do you want to start?
I don't know. There's so many.
Brands. We're starting with...
This is brands. Brands are fun.
All right. So probably one of the most famous, well, everyone knows about Coca-Cola, right? Oh, Coca-Cola has this, that. But I saw the one for its main competitor, which I guess would be a good podcast, the Cola Wars. That would be an interesting little...
yeah, we've been trying to do
something
that
to talk about, right? The whole Pepsi challenge and everything like that. But Pepsi actually got its name... Pepsi Cola, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Pepsi.
you said Pepsi.
I said Coke, but I said Coca-Cola's like rival Pepsi. All right.
Oh, okay. Oh,
got its name from the digestive enzyme pepsin. So pepsin's not an ingredient in the drink. That's how it actually got its name. Because soda was all these like medicine back then. So it's supposed to help you with digestion. So it was named after the digestive enzyme pepsin. That's how they got.
And Pepsi. What about its counter, Coca-Cola?
Well, that was a couple other things. So the famous Coca-Cola, because of its two main ingredients, were cacao leaves and cola berries.
Yep.
I don't know if you talked about cocaine there. Yes, there was cocaine back then. There was traces of it, I guess, back in the day. But
yeah, I mean, Coca-Cola as well as Pepsi, like you mentioned, they were essentially used at first to fight nausea. I mean, it was medicine, and then someone carbonated that syrup, and then one thing leads to another, and we have Cola Wars. Nike. I mean, Nike. I feel like a lot of people know this. It's named for the Greek goddess of victory, and the swoosh actually signifies like her flight, apparently. And Nike's number one competitor is actually Adidas, and it's named after Adolf Dassler, whose nickname was Adi, and Adi Dassler, so Adidas became Adidas. So I thought that was kind of cool too.
They have a whole bunch of crazy ones. Well, speaking of technology, I know we talked about this before, but Google, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it actually comes from the word Google, it's the same thing, just without the E. And it means one, it's a number, right? One followed by 100 zeros. And it signifies like the owners, right? Larry Page and Brin's mission to provide information, limitless information basically to all users, which is basically what Google was, right? Just is what it is. You type in and it's going to look up something. Nowadays there's filters and all the other stuff, but it's just you want information on something, Google's going to find some form of information out there for you. That's where it comes
Lego
from.
one, the Lego story is kind of interesting because it has two meanings that both make sense. However,
Yeah,
one is supposedly unintentional, even though that's the one that makes more sense. So Lego derives from a Danish word legot, which actually means to play well, which makes sense. You know, Lego, you play with Legos. But it also in Latin means to put together. And Lego company said it claims that that this was actually a coincidence, even though the coincidence makes a little bit more sense. Not that play well
you get
doesn't,
more
but
than the other one. Yeah, that it
put
was a Latin word.
together, right?
Yeah, one that you probably grew up with, right? Nintendo,
Nintendo,
right? The Nintendo and all, not the Switch, just the original Nintendo, right?
Nintendo,
So
or whatever,
the
right?
Trendu, right? Nin in Japanese means entrusted, and Tendu means heaven, so it means entrusted heaven, essentially.
Oh, it's how we felt when we played Nintendo.
Yeah, especially when
Uh,
you're
I,
slamming the cartridges to get them to work, right?
and blow into them.
Blowing at them.
Those are the
Game
days.
Genie.
Those are the days. Amazon, Bezos, right? He wanted something that starts with an A. That was his big deal, right? No matter what. And then he thought, you know what? Biggest river in the world is the Amazon, and he wanted his company to be the biggest company in the world. So he named it Amazon after the world's biggest river, which I thought was quite interesting. Bud, did you
All
see the
right.
Budweiser one?
I was gonna talk. No, I didn't get Budweiser. I saw it up there, but I didn't.
So it's in like
I don't want. I don't want to
apparently.
promote alcohol on this show, Pete. I
Oh,
don't know if we should do
it's
that.
not. It's not real alcohol. Dang it! I mean, it is alcohol, Tom, but it's not. We're not saying drink alcohol. Stop it. Bud. All right. So
No,
Budweiser beer has been brewed in Budweiser, Bohemia since 1245. So Budweiser actually means Budweiser and was developed as a Bohemian style beer. And
there we
no,
go.
we are not saying you should drink beer.
No, just having some conversation here. So a safer drink. Okay, I guess can be argued, right? Coffee. All right. So Starbucks
How is
coffee.
that
Everyone
safer?
knows.
No, JK,
Oh,
JK.
I don't know. I don't drink it, but whatever.
Yeah.
So you have Starbucks coffee, and it was originally named after a character in Moby Dick, Starbuck. That's where he basically got his name from. They were going to name it something else, the name of the ship from a novel, but it got rejected. They set up for Starbuck, which was the chief mate of that ship, the
Hmm,
Pequod. So
hmm.
that's how he Starbucks coffee and became the phenomenon that it is.
Interesting. Microsoft, two words.
Okay,
So, okay, so it stems from microcomputer and software, hence Microsoft. See, it's a
very
cool
fancy.
one.
We have 7-Eleven. They were renamed from in 1946 to reflect their newly extended hours, which were 7 a.m. until 11 a.m. They used to be a company called Utotem, and then
Okay,
when they started going from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., they changed their name to 7-Eleven, and that's pretty much what you see now everywhere.
really? Okay. Hewlett Packard makes sense, right? They're the ones that created the company. However, the reason why it's not PH and it's HP on your printers is because they flipped a coin to decide that the H will come
It's really
first.
crazy. They just come up with these like names and become part of like Americana, but they're just so quick, you know.
Right?
This
Nuts.
is how they done.
What
Well,
else?
this
What
one a
else
lot
you
of
got?
people probably know. It's a brand, right? It's a company that Wendy's, right? The hamburger joint was
Wendy.
actually was a nickname of the founder, Dave Thomas, his daughter. Her name was not Wendy; it was actually Melina, but her nickname was Wendy, so that's why he named it after her.
He's one episode in The Office when he calls Wendy's and he asks for Wendy, and they're like,
Oh yeah,
no.
I do remember that.
Yeah, that was funny.
There's Wendy there. They're trying to be funny.
Yeah. All right, so eBay originally the site belonged to Echo Bay Technology Group. It was like a consulting firm, and they tried to register a domain name Echo Bay, but that was basically already taken by Echo Bay Mines, a gold mining company. So it was shortened to second choice, which was eBay.com.
Well, a big drink that I know it sounds like a couple of the sodas one. There's also I have the story for Mountain Dew. So basically, what's going on with Mountain Dew is that it dates all the way back to the time when people were making their own moonshines, right, in the Appalachian Hills around Tennessee. And in the 1940s, these two brothers, Allie and Barney Hartman, they came up with this lemony soda mix, right, to add to their spirits, and they named this moonshine Mountain Dew and designed like a bottle for it featuring a hillbilly and stuff like that. And the drink was a hit, and then Pepsi eventually buys it from them, and then that's basically how Mountain Dew comes into place. But it was originally a
Hmm,
like based off of like basically bootleggers, moonshiners.
okay. Okay. And you said Nintendo before, but the Sega one I thought was interesting
Sega, yeah.
because I didn't know that Sega is actually founded by an American dude, Marty Bromley. So what this guy did is he started a company which he called the Service Games of Japan, um, which eventually became Sega, and he basically created this company to import pinball games from America to Japan to use on different American military bases, and he named his company Sega, Service Games of Japan.
Doesn't
Interesting.
Nintendo own Sega now, though?
I don't know if they own them. I know
They
they
own all.
license
Well,
their games.
yeah, there's something like that. So Sonic's in all the games. I'm seeing what my
Yeah.
kids have. It's all Sonic Mario this, Sonic Mario that. There's so many different like varieties of sandwiches, right? But what about the actual concept itself of the sandwich?
Okay.
The idea
Okay.
of its own, right? So the idea is it all dates back to this an English nobleman, John Manitou, who he was the fourth Earl of Sandwich. All right, he's the one that's kind of credited with its creation. There's even popular this sandwich chain called Earl of Sandwich. All right,
Okay.
apparently he was a avid gambler who would satisfy his hunger with nothing but a piece of roast beef between two slices of toasted bread, and then he just kept on eating that. It was his meal of preference, and he didn't have to. He liked it because he didn't have to stop playing cards while eating it. That's really how it came in. So a sandwich is named after the Earl of Sandwich.
Hmm. And kind of staying with that idea of how things are named after people, graham crackers. So the graham cracker is actually named after Sylvester Graham.
Which
He
I
was a
never thought.
minister, right? So he was a minister in 1800s, actually early like 1820s. Apparently, he believed that unhealthy foods were like a root of sinful desires and they were bad. So he purposely made graham crackers kind of dull-ish. Like they're not really super tasty. And that was the whole idea because he thought, through eating stuff that is like plainer food, it would lead people to salvation. Um, you know, obviously we put marshmallows on it now and chocolate,
Well, yeah,
but
then they become Americanized, put chocolate and marshmallows on it. Yeah, burn it and eat it. Ah,
yeah,
so
didn't quite go his way.
no, didn't exactly work, but that's okay.
Similar to Pilates. Did you see Pilates? Pilates, being like a low impact exercise, ultimately, right, was actually created by Joseph Pilates during World War I, and he used it with patients that couldn't walk because of World War I. Because of like issues that happened in war. And then eventually, after the war, he immigrates to New York City, and him and his wife Clara opened up a gym in 1926 in New York City and brings Pilates and kind of makes a name for itself as like a rehabilitation exercise method where you're using mostly just your body weight, low impact to
Yeah,
exercise.
to exercise. Well, I know how much you're an exercise freak, but I have another
Yeah.
thing that
Yeah.
is something that is synonymous with you, and that's a cardigan.
Oh,
So
funny, funny,
the,
funny.
the it's what's Mr.
Yeah,
Rogers
what
wore
is
them,
it with you and these like dukes of
and you wear
earls?
them.
This is an earl, right? Of cardigan, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's early cardigan. It basically dates back to the Crimean War. James Brundell, who happened to be the Wales seventh Earl of Cardigan, he led this doomed charge, and he was the only one that survived because he retreated. All the men that he led in the charge died. And when he got back to Wales, he was hailed a hero. People didn't learn of his retreat until much later on, and people took note of this like knitted waistcoat that he often wore, and it became a high, piece of clothing, kind of like what happened with like we talked about earlier with the pilot. Oh my God, Lindenberg, right?
Yep,
Lindenberg
Limburg.
would
Yeah, yeah.
had his the bomber jackets and his stuff like that became super popular with him. He was became famous for his charge, even though later on they found out that he retreated, and it became a high demand clothing item among his admirers. The cardigan, that's what they started calling it.
Yeah, the
So,
Earl of Cardigan.
so they go Pete.
Jacuzzi, right? Hot tub jacuzzi. So in 1943, you have an Italian, Kenneth Jacuzzi. He has this rheumatoid arthritis, and then he wants to figure out how to make this better, this rheumatoid arthritis. So he basically creates and develops this like hydrotherapy pump, which will be put into just 1943. So these pumps were put into regular tubs. You would just connect them in and connect this pump, and this apparently gave some relief at home to his arthritis. And then they started selling these portable pumps to hospitals and schools, and then eventually, it is developed into larger units that we today know as hot tubs.
Another one, I guess, mine's focusing on food, but this one is food related. I guess it helps out food out, and that is Tupperware, right? Earl
Hmm.
Silas Tupper. Basically, he was working in the plastics division, and he found his own company in 1938 where he focused on basically developing a plastic that was more durable, and he also created an airtight, excuse me, seal that he modeled after a little of a paint can. So if next time you ever look at Tupperware, it actually is the same as a paint can. That's how he modeled it, and he put these two creations together, and that's how you get Tupperware is born.
Hmm.
Earl Silas Tupper
Did you see this James Salisbury, medical doctor,
for
1800s?
Salisbury steak.
Yep, he believed that certain foods were like an answer to health problems and could potentially cure illnesses. So during the Civil War, Salisbury actually, this is funny because he believed that fruits and vegetables were the root of all health problems. So he thought that if soldiers ate too much fruit and vegetables, that it was unhealthy for them. So he started feeding them basically it's like super strict diet of chopped meat and chopped meat only. Um, and they became these like minced beef patties that eventually became a steak dish and carried his name, Dr. Salisbury, the Salisbury
Salisbury
steak.
steak.
WD
Getting
40. Let's look at some
gonna get hungry
items.
on this podcast.
I
All
know,
right.
right? Items WD 40. I love WD 40. Invented 1953. It's so essentially it's a functional product. Obviously, I mean, I think like everyone owns a can of WD 40. Come to
Yeah,
think of it.
somewhere in the house, right?
Yeah, when I moved out of my house, my dad bought me a WD 40 can and duct tape. It stands for Water Displacement 40th Formula. Ha.
I did know that. Yeah, yeah. That he was like 40 times before that, and then they had like
Yep. Yeah, so they were trying to create this. The company's trying to create this like rust prevention solvents and degreasers, actually for the aerospace industry, and it took them 40 attempts to get the water displacing formula just right. So that's why it's displacing formula 40. Like if they did it on a 36 try, it would be
maybe
WD
something totally
36.
different. Yeah,
Yeah, like
and that's
doesn't
just weird
sound
because
as
it
right,
would be a totally different name and a totally different, just like
right?
you know, totally different thing.
Crazy.
Totally different thing.
Well, there's Braille. The
There's,
idea of
well,
Braille,
you have Braille. I did see the Braille one.
right?
So go ahead. You can do that one.
Early 1800s, there is Louis Braille. He
Braille.
has an accident at the age of 3 and goes completely blind. And he attends the Royal Institution for Blind Youth. And there was already an existing coded system for communicating for those that are people that are blind, and it had raised dots, very similar, and it was created by Charles Barbier. However, apparently the method was way too complicated, so Louis Braille kind of creates a simpler universal reading and writing system, and he actually does this at the age of 15. And then 2 years after his death, the Braille system becomes adopted as the official communication system for the blind in France. And then eventually, the countries around the world follow kind
I
of
think like basically created a way of communication, like
at
more than
15.
just a language. Yeah, at 15.
Just crazy.
Interesting individual. All right, let's shift over to how about body parts? A few body
All right,
parts.
go to body parts. And then I have
The one
one,
that I
actually, before you do body parts, hold on. Saxophone, because like this one's
oh,
for
okay, I
my
did.
son.
Okay, yeah. I know we talked
Yeah,
about
because
that.
he
Okay.
plays sax. So this one's for my kid. Anyway, it was invented and patented in 1846 by a Belgian instrument maker, Adolphe Sax. And apparently he was like trying to like fill a void because he believed that there was like the lower voice within a wind instrument family which just didn't exist. So he created the saxophone. Ta-da. Okay, go with the body parts.
All right, so the one I was going to talk about first is something your palm of your hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people, the palm of your hand, how that happened. So it all dates back actually to the Romans. Supposedly there was this Roman tradition where they would place a palm leaf in the hands of the winner of a contest during ancient times, and that led to the meaning of the underside of your hand being called the palm.
Okay.
That's basically where that comes from.
What else do
So
you have for
that was
bodies?
good. One of the other ones is the artery, right? Just something that
Something
right,
with
the
air,
artery.
right? It has something to do with air,
Yeah,
I
well, the
think.
name of it's the blood vessels. Is actually comes from the Latin and Greek word urethra, which is quite literally means air holder. And the ancients used to, believe that the arteries were air ducts since they didn't hold any blood after death. And since then, we've learned differently, but the name kind of still remains the same.
Like we call them household items, but there actually used to be brand names, but we refer to them brands. Like Kleenex was a
As a brand, yeah.
brand. But when someone says I can have a Kleenex, like they're talking about a tissue. Band-Aid, like I want a Band-Aid. Band-Aid is an actual company name.
Yeah, it's
right?
actually, what is it? It's like means like medical strips or
Right.
something like that. I
Yeah,
forgot
and
the
they put in
actual
like
formula.
Sharpie. If I want a Sharpie, like everyone knows what I'm talking about, but Sharpie's an actual company. Q-tips is an actual company. There's so many if you start looking into this, like Post-it notes. Post-it is a company. Thermos, even like something like a memory stick. I need a memory, like that's actually a company name that came up with it.
Yeah,
Frisbee, that was the company that created the first Frisbee.
yeah,
Laundromat,
because it's actually become part of. It's almost become a item itself, even though
yeah.
it's not. It's not
Even
an
though that's
item. It's
not
the
it.
name.
Yeah, like Fiberglass is the company that created the first fiberglass product. Plexiglass is the company that created that product. We see them for what they are, which I think was kind of cool.
Well, the list like it goes on and on. Like we can literally
Yeah, there's so many. I mean,
be be
if you guys
doing
start
this
looking
like
into it,
all day. Like, it's just constant. There's car companies, right? Like DeLorean, right? You think of the DeLorean from like the Back to the Future movies, named after John DeLorean. Like you have all those types of things. You have a ton of companies obviously named after individuals themselves.
and there's also a lot of things that have names that you just don't know nor care to know. Um, they're like you have them, but you didn't know they had an official name. Like for example, the plastic ends of your shoelaces. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
had
what are
no
those
idea it
called?
has
They have
aglets.
those
They're known as
aglets. Yeah,
they're called aglets. Like what?
I didn't know
Uh,
that from
Yeah,
things I've
aglets keep
heard.
your laces from unraveling. Like, okay, awesome. Hey, you lost an aglet on your shoelace. Like, what? Um, ferrules are the little metal pieces that hold your pencil's eraser at the end of your pencil. Do you know that one? Yeah, like ferrule. Oh, you're missing a ferrule on that pencil. Um,
Yeah, I don't think people are actually calling it those things. But yes, that's the whole point of what you're saying. I know.
yeah. How about the little triangle thing that goes in the Pizza Hut box in the middle? It's known as the pizza saver.
Pizza saver,
Ah,
the
so
little
that
table
yeah,
things.
yeah, so that a pizza box doesn't collapse at the center. All right, all right, all right. The wire cage that keeps the cork in a bottle of champagne, is called the agraf.
Yeah. They have
Again,
all these things. Well, you also had one. So like, I get what you're saying. So these are things that like we didn't even know had names. But it's also like think of like some of the famous things that have names, but their names were originally very different, and how different things would
there's
have
a lot of
been.
cool things
So I
here.
know we
Yeah,
talked about one like Google. We talked about Google already, but it was originally called Backrub.
I know.
That's when it was originally the number one search engine was named Backrub, and they renamed it in 1998 as a play on words for Google, and that's when it became like this big thing. But imagine me go, I'm going to go backrub something, or go, like people say, go Google yourself, whatever, or go backrub yourself. Like it's just going to be like just changes. It just sounds weird.
Amazon was
So
Cadabra.
Best Buy, everyone's been to Best Buy, right? It used to be called
Yeah,
Sound of Music. Basically, a big sale. They sold everything, and then someone said, "Oh yeah, this place has the best buys." Kind of like caught on.
Tom, I forget
Jerry's
his.
Guide to it used to be Jerry's Guide to the World Wide Web. Later became known as Yahoo.
I always thought, like, what if Yahoo was successful? And
I don't know how things would be different. Just our like you said, our vernacular, how we say things, what we use, all that would be different.
again, there's so many things. This is just like a little.
It's endless. It's endless.
And it's endless. It's a little tidbit. And this is just like Googling, instead of Yahooing. This is like Googling out there. So guys, if you're like curious about this, just Google how things got their name. And there are so many. And there's also so many things that have names that you never thought of. Like, I mentioned a few. Even like your belt buckle. Like once your belt has passed through the buckle, the last hoop, that you're like tuck it into is called the keeper. What? Like I don't know. Anyway,
Well, that makes sense. It's that's what that
it
means. It
keeps
makes more
it, right?
sense than anglet.
That is true. That is true. Well, that's it, guys. So thank you once more for tuning in every week. We appreciate it. If you need to find us, you can find us at www.historyteacherstalkingpodcast.com. Please feel free to leave a review wherever you listen to this podcast. We do greatly appreciate those. And I hope you guys have an amazing week. See you next week.
Stay safe, everybody.
I hope everyone enjoyed our podcast, and if you would like to email us, you can do so at historyteacherspodcast@gmail.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.